Hello class, and welcome to my first tutorial video for Unit 4. In this tutorial I'm going to show you flash fill as well as some more formula functionality that'll help you more quickly complete spreadsheets. So the first item is flash fill. What flash fill allows you to do is very quickly fill in an entire area based on the information that is repetitive from another area of the spreadsheet. And I'm going to use the example they do in the textbook project so you can see it in action. So here's a partially completed textbook project as you'll be building this week in your project. And you can see here that I've got employee name with it's set up with last name comma first name. And then I've got some email addresses that I know the formatting of. And because this is a corporation, the email addresses typically follow a very similar format. So instead of having to type in each one of these email addresses and risking making errors as I type them, I can utilize flash fill to very quickly complete this column. So I go here to my first empty cell. I go to the Data tab, and under the Data tab, I can click on Flash Fill right here. Once I click on this, it's going to figure out for me the rest of the email addresses. Now in this case, it goes a little further than I need it to. It is trying to fill out email addresses where I don't actually need them, so I'll have to go back and delete a few of them. For instance, it tried to turn totals into the email ttotals@email.com, as well as down here in my totals area. So I'll just delete those, and it did it up here at the top, and I will delete those. And you can see now I have all of my email addresses formatted for me utilizing flash fill. In this case, it did go a little farther than it would normally do. However, in cases where you have a very large spreadsheet, this can be of value. Now, more about entering formulas. So in the previous modules, you did a little bit of formula stuff. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do with formulas, and there's a whole bunch of different ways to do them. One way, and I've kind of touched on this in previous videos, is you can actually just type them on your keyboard into a cell. So if I go back over to that same spreadsheet, you can see that we've got this tax percentage column, and I don't want to do this by hand. I want Excel to solve this for me. So I will go into this empty cell here, and I know that to calculate the tax percentage, I need to take the federal tax plus the state tax and then divide that by my gross pay, and that will give me my tax percentage. So anytime you're entering a formula into a spreadsheet, you always have to start with an equal sign to tell Excel that you are now entering a formula instead of just typing in text to be displayed. So I'm going to use the equal sign, and I want to add together column G, row 4, and column H, row 4. And then I want to divide that sum by column F, row 4. And you can see as I type them in, Excel is coloring those cells so I know which cells are a part of my formula. Once I hit enter, it tells me that the tax percentage for that employee is 25.15%. I can do the same thing with net pay. If I want to enter net pay in, I can put an equal sign in, and I want to subtract from column F, row 4, my gross pay, the total of my federal tax, which is in G4, and my state tax, which is in H4, to get my net pay for that employee. And they show an example here. I can also do this with a little less typing. So instead of using entirely typing on the keyboard, I can click with my cursor to make things a little bit faster. So back over in my spreadsheet, I can I'm going to delete this and do it again, except this time I'm going to do it in point mode. So, same as before, I do an equal sign to tell Excel that I am doing a formula. And I want to add, again, column G and column H, row 4. But instead of typing it into the cell, I'm going to move my cursor over here into column G and click. And you can see that Excel automatically puts it into my formula for me. And then I'm going to put my plus sign in. And I'm going to click in column H and have it immediately type that in for me. Put in my divided by sign. And then click on column F. And then hit enter, and I get the same result. The advantage here is I don't have to try to type in the cells. I'm just directly clicking on them, so I know for sure that the cell that I want is the one that's being used in the formula. One of the other things I can do to very quickly fill out these cells, as opposed to having to put that formula into every row, is I can grab this little square down here in the right corner of the cell, and I can drag down until I get all of the rows that I want to follow a similar formula formatting. And when I let up on my cursor, it will automatically apply those formulas down that column. And you can see that in this one, it is using the cells directly to the left of it. But Excel is smart enough that if I look at this row, it's keeping relative to the cell I want to do the math on. So it's not trying to do the original cell, it's working its way down the column with the rest of it. Can do a very similar thing with net pay. Because I've got my formula here, I want to copy that same formatting down to the other cells. I can just double click on this little square on the right corner, and Excel will attempt to just fill in the column to the point where it doesn't make sense anymore. In this case, it grabbed a little bit more than I wanted, so I can just delete this information here. And now I've filled in very quickly the tax percentage and the net pay. Continuing on, I can do some other formulas. Average, max, and min, and you'll be doing all of these in your textbook project this week. In the PowerPoint that or the Excel spreadsheet we've been working on, there are rows here for highest, lowest, and average. And I would like to figure that out for each one of the cells where it's appropriate. So if I go into highest, I want to know who's worked the highest hours worked. So I will, again, like I've done before, hit the equal sign to tell Excel that I'm doing a formula. I will do max, because that gives me the maximum of a set of cells. And then I'll put a parentheses in saying that's what I want to do. I want to do the max of the numbers in this area of parentheses. And in this case, I'm going to use the point mode again. I'm going to click and drag down my hours worked column, so it selects all of the ones that I want to find the maximum of. And you can see that it filled in D4:D12. I put in an end parentheses, and I hit enter, and it is telling me among those numbers in my selected set, 80 is the maximum. I can do what I did here for this column. I can also do with rows across. So I want to apply this max across, and it very quickly does that for me. Now, some of these cells make more sense than others, but I can very quickly work my way across and figure that information out. I can also do it with min. So if I go to this row here, I want to know who's worked the minimum hours, but I can't remember what the formula is to do that. So in this case, I'm going to click on the cell, and I'm going to go up here to my bar going across, and there's this one that says FX on it. If I click on this, it brings up a function window that lets me have a bit of a UI for trying to figure out which formula to use. I can't remember what the one's called, so in this box at the top where it says type a brief description, I can just type minimum and hit go, and Excel will tell me these are the formulas that one of these is the one you're probably looking for. And I can read the descriptions of each one down below. I find that I want to do min. I hit OK, and it will actually take me to another UI where I could fill in each one of the numbers I want to have in my function. So if I wanted the minimum of D14, that's not what I want. I want to change that, I can click here on this up arrow and my window will shrink up, and then I can click and drag down hours worked, and then I can hit enter and it will put that into that cell. I hit OK and it completes the formula. I can do the same as I did before and drag this information across, and then I can find the minimum among those cells. I can do a very similar thing with average, equal sign, average. In this case, I knew generally what it was, and you can see that it gives me this short option here that says these are the ones you're probably thinking of. I can double click on one and then it will fill it in for me. And in this case, I know I want to do D4 colon D12, just type it on my keyboard, in parentheses enter, and I can drag that information across, or I can double click on the right box in this case if I wanted to and do that. I can also verify my formulas after I've typed them in and hit enter to make sure that I'm getting the cells I expect to. So I know that I filled out tax percentage here. If I'm not sure I got that right, I can double click into the cell, and you can see that it highlights it in colors, just like it did when I was originally typing it. So I can make sure that I have the right information in the cell. I can do that with any of these cells. That's all for this tutorial video. Thanks.